Howdy gang, what's up? Aaron. Thank God it's Monday, I guess. Let's get into Canadian federal politics. Oh my God, we've got a lot to watch. Let's kick this off with something rather absurd.
I don't want this in my child's classroom.
I don't care what you want.
I don't want it in there.
It's a parent's choice.
What do you mean?
What
this is lying to children. There's no such thing as a transgender person.
Yes, there is.
Explain to me, how would a boy know he's a girl?
Because they're born that way, just like people who are gay or people who are lesbians, which you probably don't believe in, of course. You're born that way, and you don't know because you were born as a cisgendered white woman. Good for you. Excellent. You're the standard. I wasn't. So you can't tell me.
But why do you think children shouldn't be able to grow up to be healthy and whole? I mean, this
a transgendered person grows up to be healthy and whole.
No, he
yes,
can't.
They do.
He can't
yes,
have an orgasm. He
yes,
can't
they
have
can.
it. No,
he's
infertile.
As a transgendered person, yes, I can.
Well, he's infertile, and he lost his penis at 17 years old.
So he doesn't want one.
Well, you think a boy can consent at 17 years old to having his penis removed?
At 17, yes, especially if their parents consent.
So what about the girls in Davis who've had double mastectomies? You don't care that 13, 14-year-old girls are losing their breasts?
If that's what they want. Because it's their choice.
They're told.
Why do you care?
They're minors.
It's their choice. Okay, then it's their parents' choice.
Why can a parent decide to have their...
Because it's the parents' choice.
No, it's sacrifice.
You don't want me to tell you how to raise your children, do you? You don't want me to come in and tell you not to spank your children, do you? No, so you can't come in and tell me that my children aren't transgender. Yeah. No, you cannot.
I'm not dealing with that, but I'm saying that parents
You can't put your hatred all over the place.
This is not about hatred.
You're telling somebody that they're not who they say they are. How is that love? How is that love?
Because their body tells them who they are.
No, their body does not tell them who they are. Your brain tells you who you are.
It's your chromosomes.
You guys are so fucking stupid.
No, you're a man. You're a man. You'll always be a man. You're a man. You're a man. You're a man.
At least I'm kind.
I am too. I am too.
The Americans are moving all of this heavy oil from Alaska right down the same route at 12.1 nautical miles offshore in international waters. All kinds of oil is moving along that coast all the time, every day, every week. So for Canada to have a tanker ban that only affects Canada and only constrains the Canadian economy while the American economy thrives is ridiculous.
In Canadian federal politics, the Canucks are represented by two separate yet unequal groups: the globalists who sold out and the opposition trying to salvage a country. These are their stories.
We know that for Canada's healthcare system, the last several years, particularly since COVID, things have not been easy. We are reserving 5,000 federal admission spaces for provinces and territories to nominate licensed doctors who hold job offers. These are dedicated spaces over and above the annual allocations. So when a province or territory finds a qualified doctor, federal caps will not be a barrier. We are deploying federal tools to support this effort. We are launching a new express entry category specifically for international doctors with at least 1 year of Canadian work experience in the present years. Effective immediately, for provincially selected doctors, we are offering expedited processing of work permits, and I can tell you that's a big deal. A doctor will be able to secure a job, get nominated by a province or territory, and have their work permit processed in just 14 days.
All right, let's talk about Green Party leader Elizabeth May on CTV's Question Period, saying she regrets supporting the budget and that the Liberals cannot count on her vote going forward. What do you make of her comments?
Well, she's trying to put a whole heck of a lot of green toothpaste back into the tube, because she came out as soon as the budget was tabled, she kept using the word absolutely. I will absolutely never vote for this budget. I will absolutely never vote for this budget. And then she voted for the budget. And so nobody could understand that. She was heavily criticized by people in environmental groups for having done that. Now she's got a lengthy explanation that in her negotiation, she had obtained something about whether or not you could use tax credits for oil recovery and stuff like that. It sounds very complicated. There was one very easy win for Elizabeth May in there. There was a $2 billion tree planting program. Great way to sequester carbon, by the way, is have a bunch of trees. And the Liberal Party of Mark Carney decided to get rid of that program for reasons that are still inexplicable. And she had an easy win on the table. All she had to do was ask for something concrete that people could understand, and then she could say, I'm going to vote for the budget. She got nothing before the budget. She claims she had something, but who knows? And now she's saying that they can't count on her. The reason they can't count on her now is because they obviously got what they wanted when she voted for the budget, and now she's feeling bad about it. This is retroactive reflections on what she should have done. It's not an example of somebody who stood up on principle like Guilbeault did and said, I can't walk with this. She voted for that budget. She has to live with it, and she's trying to change the story now.
We're going to form a photo line on the south side of the synagogue, so over there along the wall for a quick picture with Pierre.
Welcome back. Hundreds of Amazon employees in Quebec are left to pick up the pieces following the shuttering of warehouses across the province. Amazon Canada says it's stopping operations at 7 of its facilities over the next 2 months, which is resulting in more than 1,700 layoffs.
He worked hard to climb the ranks to supervisor over the past 4 years.
It's hard to find one stable job. And we have to just start over. We have to start at the beginning.
Nobody saw this coming.
Well, Adrian, it will no longer be Amazon drivers showing up at the door.
Canada is in absolute disbelief as Amazon walks out of Quebec, shutting down every warehouse and leaving a crater in the province's economic landscape. 7 hubs gone. Nearly 2,000 livelihoods erased in one sweep. A region that once powered Amazon's growth, now left out in the cold. You don't exit an entire province unless something deeper is burning beneath the surface.
Amazon parcels in Quebec will be handled by different distributors soon, and hundreds of workers are left to find jobs elsewhere. Amazon Canada says it's shutting down operations at 7 of its warehouses over the next 2 months. The corporate mega power says it's reverting back to their old business model, using third-party companies for package deliveries. One union is calling the move a push against labor rights. One representative called it a slap in the face for all Quebec workers, and it's a move that runs counter to the provisions of the labor code, and one will be taking a firm stand against.
Tony Fauci's problem is this. There's a little-known federal law that says you cannot give an emergency use authorization to a vaccine if there is any medication approved for any purpose that is shown effective against the target disease. So if Tony Fauci or anybody had admitted that hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin are effective against COVID, it would have been illegal for them to give the emergency use authorizations to the vaccines, and they could never have gotten them approved. And it would have been, a 200 billion enterprise that would have collapsed.
That is fascinating. I mean, I have been covering this very closely now for all of the 2 years. That's the first I've heard that. In your book. So he would not have gotten emergency use authorization for the vaccine if the medical community had been saying ivermectin works. It is an effective treatment for COVID.
Well, the medical community, a lot of it was saying that. I mean, there's 17,000 doctors who've signed a petition, and there are so many peer-reviewed publications now that consistently say that, but he had to aggressively crusade against it to kind of drown out those reports by saying it's a horse medication, it's, people are taking it and it's dangerous and it's overdosing people. And,
Well, why did he keep saying it? Why did he keep saying it after he got his authorization?
Well, even if you have the emergency use authorization, the law appears to say you can't have it anymore if there's a functioning medication. So, that may be why. Again, I try not to look in his head, but I do. There's a very, very strong incentive for him to kill ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. And there are many doctors, including Harvey Reich of Yale, who's one of the leading biostatisticians, epidemiologists in the world. Peter McCulloch, who is the most published doctor in the history of the world in his specialty. Pierre, these doctors who've treated tens of thousands of COVID patients successfully, they consistently say, and the science supports this, that 500,000 Americans did not need to die.
We'll begin with Madame Dancho. The floor is yours for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister Joly, for being with us today. Of course, we have a copy of the redacted contract of the Special Contribution Agreement of up to $15 billion taxpayer dollars and the Strategic Innovation Fund, which represents a $500 million contribution from your government. Of course, to Stellantis for the Nexstar EV battery plant, as you know, courtesy of CBC last week. So now we have a situation where 3,000 people have been laid off in the Brampton facility, as you know, and you've responded to say that you're going to sue them, that they've broken their promises. And just today you've announced that you're starting the formal dispute resolution. So I'm trying to understand what exactly the promise is that you're saying they broke, assuming that means that they broke a promise they signed in the contract. So can you tell the committee where in this agreement, courtesy of CBC, is that Canada-wide jobs guarantee? What clause?
Well, first of all, when it comes to the different, so I think we should be clear, there are 3 different contracts. This committee will have access to it. The government is acting in good faith. I want to make sure that everybody is aware of these contracts and will be able to have access to it. So it's not a courtesy of CBC or not. The government has already accepted the production
but in
of
that's
the contract.
The first that I'm able to see it. So is it in that contract or is it in another CIF agreement?
So obviously you'll see in the contract that all the contracts are linked. And clearly, it is about protecting jobs. It is about also the production at the Brampton facility. So you'll see that clearly. So, by the way, I must say, Raquel, because I think your question is really an important one, this committee, although it's not necessarily the same members, but this committee got access to contracts for the Nexstar facility 2 years ago. So that's why the government has never been clearer that you can obviously have access to it.
Those are read in confidence. We do know they're going to OGO, and now CBC has released it. So this is the first access we've been able to publicly see the contract. And again, I'll just say as an aside, this is, of course, a professional setting, Minister, so I'm extending a professional courtesy to you to refer to as Minister Joly. I would appreciate that same courtesy to me in this setting. Thank you. So in this contract, though, there is no jobs guarantee other than the 2,500 at the Nexstar plant. So are you saying that the other CIF agreement that was for retooling Brampton and Windsor, does that contain a Brampton jobs guarantee?
So I must dispute what you just said. This is not a fact. There's always job numbers guarantees. That's exactly why the government of Canada and also the government of Ontario in this case have decided to support the company. Because at the end of the day, why do we do this? MP Dancho, we do that because we believe that it's important to create jobs, to protect jobs and create jobs.
Minister,
so you will have access to the information. You will see in the contract that there are job numbers.
Thank you.
And of course, there are things that are commercially sensitive, but the government will be acting in good faith.
But in the contract that we were provided from CBC publicly, there is a jobs commitment to the Nexstar plant. There is no mention of Brampton. So I'm asking you, in the contract we have not been able to see for Brampton, is there a jobs guarantee for Brampton?
There are jobs guarantees in all the different contracts, but I must say also that you absolutely need to make sure that you see not only the contract that is linked to the investment through the Strategic Innovation Fund for the Windsor and Brampton facility, but also its amendment. And we'll make sure that that's the case.
So you're saying that the Nexstar, the 2 contracts you've provided to them that total well over $15 billion, that you're tying that contract being paid out to the other CIF agreement for the Brampton and Windsor retooling. Is that correct? Because they're in violation of a Brampton...
The 3 contracts are linked. There's a contract and an amendment.
14.1G.
So,
yeah.
a couple of things, and maybe, Charles, if you want to be able to address the question by MP Dencho, but just before I pass it to Charles, it is really important to understand that in the contract, when you refer to $15 billion, the $15 billion was linked to the production and sale of batteries. So when you look at Windsor right now, and obviously your colleague would know because she's from the writing, the facility has been built, but the company is still hiring. And there's not been any production and sale of batteries yet. So the government has not spent $15 billion. So I know that some colleagues have been using the term $15 billion, but it's not accurate.
Up to $15 billion, though.
It's not been spent yet by the government, and that's an important fact.
What you're saying, though, is that because those 3,000 jobs at Brampton were laid off, they're in violation of their agreements. Fair enough. Now, you're saying that there is a Brampton jobs guarantee and that other SIF agreement that no one in the media or ourselves has seen that's going to OGO. We welcome that opportunity to see that. But you're saying there's a jobs guarantee in there that will link it to the Nexstar battery plant. Is that correct?
It's actually linked to the fact that the Brampton facility must be operating, and there is not a possibility. If the Brampton facility ceases its production, there will be a violation of the contract.
And that's going to impact your agreements with the Nexstar plant. Is that correct?
And that's why we're actually starting today with the mechanism of dispute settlement, because it is important that we be able to hold the company to account. So are you prepared then? But I just, MP Dencho, maybe Charles, you want to add something?
Sure. Thank you very much. I guess what I would just highlight in all the agreements under the Strategic Innovation Fund, there are regular commitments around jobs, around the maintenance of activity, and so those are the types of economic
Just with my
activity.
remaining 10 seconds, so are you prepared to pull back some of this up to $15 billion and the other funding from Nexstar if they don't properly equip with the 3,000 workers in Brampton? Do you understand what I'm saying? Are you prepared to make that commitment? You're going to roll back some Nexstar funding?
Well, we'll make sure that basically we continue to uphold them to the funding that they're liable for, period.
I'm out of time. An issue again, it's 3,000 jobs, as you've said, and you've linked the contract, the SIF retooling with Brampton and Windsor to the Nexstar plants. So I need to understand, though, you mentioned there was a production guarantee for the Brampton SIF agreement, but you did not specify an employment guarantee number. So was it 3,000 jobs that SIF agreement with Brampton guaranteed?
So I will provide that information through you because obviously they're commercially sensitive information. So I just need to check.
If I may just interrupt for a moment.
No, I don't want to be interrupted, Mr. Chair. I just want to be able to finish my sentence, please.
Minister, MP Dancho.
If I may.
Yeah, here's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
When we ask the minister to appear, we want the minister to have an opportunity to have answers. We want members to have an opportunity to have questions. I'm not going to hold the time of her response against your time.
What about this time?
Okay, this time the clock is paused, so you're okay. Minister, I'll let you finish the response. Madame Dancho, I'll ask to let her complete, and then Minister, I'll ask you to let her complete. I'm not going to hold the clock hostage here. So Minister, finish, and then MP Dancho.
I think it's important when you look at the different contracts that first and foremost, particularly on the battery front, the contract is 1/3 the government of Ontario and 2/3 the government of Canada. So it's not $15 billion. I know that the MP has referred to $15 billion for the government of Canada.
Because this isn't what I asked you specifically.
But to go specifically on the job numbers, we'll look at what is possible to make public because of commercially sensitive information.
If I may on that specific point,
I just want to finish my answer.
Specific point,
and
please, if you'll allow me, Minister. It is my time, so I'm just going to have to respond. So on the commercially sensitive redactions, now on the SIF agreement for Nexstar, the jobs guarantee of 2,500 was not redacted, so it stands to reason that it wouldn't be redacted, wouldn't be commercially sensitive under a different SIF agreement. Surely you can tell us if there was a 3,000 person jobs guarantee for Brampton, and that's not commercially sensitive information. So it is concerning to me that you're not committing that there was a jobs guarantee for the Brampton facility.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
So you're saying that there is?
I'm saying that all the plants were linked and all the contracts are linked. So you will be able to see it when we will be producing.
But if there wasn't a jobs guarantee of 3,000 people at Brampton, which is the whole reason you're here, then how is it that you're tying all of the money to a jobs guarantee that may or may not exist? You should be able to tell us if there is a jobs guarantee for the 3,000 jobs in Brampton.
I think you're falling into the trap of trying to find a problem where there's none.
Well, the problem is that 3,000 people were laid off,
the government
and
was
your government committed millions and billions, in fact, of dollars.
Well, MP
and we're
Dancho,
trying
I don't
to
know whether
understand
you want
if
this to be a monologue or you want me to appear. Because
the question
if you
I'm
want
asking
this
you
to
is
be a
very
monologue,
clear.
I don't need to be here.
Colleagues, I'm going to pause us again for a moment. I do want to ensure that we've got an opportunity for dialogue. I think that's the ultimate goal here. Minister, if you can give us maybe 30 seconds in your reply, MP Dancho will go back to you, and then I believe you were hoping to split the time with Mr. Seaback, of which there would be about 3 minutes or so left. Minister, if you want to give us about a 30-second answer here.
Yeah, well, ultimately the goal was to create jobs. And so obviously there were job numbers, and obviously it was linked to the fact that we needed to protect the Brampton facility. I was not negotiating at the time, but this is clear through the very evaluation and just the fact that just reading the contracts. When you see that there are contracts that are linked to investing in the Windsor plant that are linked to the Brampton facility, or investing in the Windsor Nexstar LG, basically Stellantis LG, contract linked to the Brampton facility. So clearly it was to protect the jobs. And so that was the position of the government.
If I may, so again, what we're trying to dig down is if your government instituted a clause in one of these three agreements that guaranteed the broader Stellantis footprint in Canada, including the 3,000 jobs that were just laid off. You know this. So what I'm trying to drill down is if there was something in the contracts, there isn't one in here. Brampton is even mentioned in the contract for the Nexstar agreement. I understand they can be linked. There is a clause 14.1G that may link it to the Brampton facility. But you're not committing whether there was a clear jobs guarantee there. So your argument is, oh, no, we're covered. We're suing them in clear grounds. But you're not telling us, in fact, if there was 3,000 jobs guaranteed in that CIF agreement. So that's the real question I have, because there is significant commitments, as you know, up to $15 billion in partnership with Ontario. We have also another $1 billion of capital investment as well for the retooling of Brampton and Windsor under the CIF agreement. I'm trying to nail down if there's a jobs requirement for Brampton. A further $500 million in this CIF agreement for the Nexstar. We're talking about billions and billions and billions of dollars. And from our estimation and the historic investment that your government has made, surely there should be an explicit Canada-wide jobs guarantee. But we're splitting hairs here. You're kind of being quite evasive of the numbers, whether there's a real guarantee. It should be explicit if you're going to give a historic amount of taxpayer funding. In fact, just to wrap up, Mr. Chair, I will just say this. I'm not sure if you understand the magnitude of the money that you've committed, but I did some math. And the number of two-parent full-time working households that had to work for your government to provide just its contribution to Stellantis is over 647,000 Canadian families had to work an entire year for your government to provide up to $11 billion. And there is no explicit jobs guarantee in anywhere here.
True.
So
you're putting words into my mouth, which I don't agree.
Of whether there's a 3,000
and also, you're not being true to the contract.
You're not
because the contract is until 2032. So math doesn't work. Stop doing politics. The goal right now is to protect the workers.
Enough.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to be generous here. Mr. Seaback, I'm going to give you the opportunity because I believe that MP Dancho was hoping to share some time with you. There is not time left. I'm going to be generous, provide you the opportunity for a question.
Oh, thank you.
And I ask that you allow the minister to respond in full to that question, and then we're going to continue. Okay?
Great. Minister, I know you're aware that Oshawa lost a shift, 700 jobs. They went to the United States for production there. Oshawa plant makes light-duty trucks and heavy-duty trucks. Are you aware that GM is now retooling an abandoned EV plant in Orion, Michigan to manufacture light-duty trucks starting Q1 2027? And I spoke to Unifor Auto Workers this morning about this. So they want to know from you, will you guarantee today that they will not lose their jobs and have those jobs be transferred to the United States, just like what happened at the Brampton Stellantis plant? Will you guarantee it today?
So, Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, I think that this was about Stellantis, I will answer, of course, discussions linked to GM. When it comes to Oshawa, the third shift is here until January, and we're fighting for it. And we're having conversation with Stellantis to make sure that we're able to keep it, and to keep the production in St. Catharines, and to keep and bring back also a production to Ingersoll. And I will continue to push, because I think that is completely unacceptable what is going at GM. That being said, I think that what is happening at GM and what is happening at Stellantis are two different decisions, because there was a clear commitment on the part of Stellantis before the Canadian government to make sure that there would be a facility that would be working with the Jeep Compass at Stellantis in Brampton. When it comes to also the third shift, we'll continue to make sure that we put pressure on GM. I will be having conversation with Mayor Barra. Unifor has been having conversations also with GM, and we will be united, because I've met also with the Oshawa people. I've met with the Oshawa auto workers. I've met also with Unifor, and I'll make sure that they can keep their jobs.
Thank you, Mr. Seaback.
Appel au règlement, Monsieur le Président.
Oui, allez-y, Monsieur Seaback.
Point of order, Chair. I'd just like to remind the colleagues that when there are several people speaking at the same time, it makes it very difficult for the interpreters, and it can cause even injuries. So a little reminder about that. Thank you, Chair. I agree. Thank you, sir.
There was quite an involved exchange, which involved some of the crosstalk that Monsieur Saint-Marie mentioned. So I was wondering if the Minister wanted to conclude any remarks that she hadn't had the chance to make with respect to Stellantis in that earlier exchange.
So colleagues, I think we're starting to get off track a little bit here. So let's get back to the reason why we're here, which is to ask the Minister questions. Madame Akan, you have the floor for 5 minutes, and I hope that we can keep ourselves on track a little better than we did in the
I'll be splitting my time with MP Borelli. Minister, you claim that there's a section and a clause in the contract that can point specifically to a violation Stellantis has made. So has the Government of Canada, their lawyers, contacted Stellantis and invoked that clause?
That's what we're doing today. That's exactly the letter that we're sending today.
So today you're invoking a clause in a contract. What section and what specific clause will you be invoking?
So you don't have access, I gather, to the contract that is linked to the CIF agreement, which is, bureaucrat words, the Strategic Innovation, public servant words, Strategic Innovation Fund, and that is linked to the Strategic Innovation Fund support for Windsor and Brampton, and there's an amendment also to that contract.
So, Minister, I heard you mention the federal EV mandates, and we've had some auto executives here at this committee who said, you know, the pause doesn't create the certainty that the industry requires, and really the one very simple and easy thing the government could do to breathe some life into the sector would be to remove these EV mandates. So, given all the pressures on the auto sector from trade negotiations and the latter, should or will you commit today to eliminating the EV mandate?
So my goal is to make sure that when it comes to the future of the sector, that the production in Canada is protected, and actually that there are incentives for them to continue to even more produce in Canada. So that's why I've had the conversation with Honda and Toyota, who have both have non-plug-ins hybrids. I'm willing to have conversations with them. I'm willing to do things to protect the jobs in Alston, to make sure that the Toyota and Honda
one last
plants
quick question, because my time's very limited. In the Strategic Innovation Fund agreement, there's very detailed enforceable reporting on gender equality, diversity, and climate initiatives. Goes as far as saying there's a 50-30 challenge where the board's made up of 50% women and non-binary people, 30% racialized, LGBTQ+, people with disabilities, First Nations, Métis. Why are the most detailed commitments in the agreement net zero and DEI and not jobs guarantees for Brampton?
Are you against women being on boards?
No, I would say I'm for
No, but I'm just
100%.
Just answer the question.
That's not what I said. First of all, but also I'd be for 100% female boards. It should be merit-based. But the question is, why is there no reference to keeping jobs at Stellantis and so much emphasis
But
on
I
these
don't know
policies?
why you're all saying that there's no commitment. There is. So, like, just look at the contracts and then you'll be informed.
What section?
You know, it's going to be in the production of the contract on the
Thank
SIF
you, Mr. I'm
agreement for
sharing my
Windsor
time.
and Brampton, period. And the amendment.
Jump in, Kathy.
And I must say, we're acting in good faith. We're not on the different teams here. We all want the same thing. And the same thing is to bring back production at Brampton.
Minister, billions of dollars of taxpayer money was poured into a single foreign-owned company, Stellantis. Taxpayers want to know, and they deserve to know, where their money is being used. They deserve to know if that money will lead to good-paying jobs for Canadians. What actions will you take if you do not receive a plan from Stellantis? Within the contracts of Stellantis, if there was a default, then they must pay the money back. Will you commit to ensuring Stellantis pays back the billions of taxpayer dollars your government handed out?
Well, that's what we're doing today. We're launching that process. But I just want to understand, you're from Windsor, right?
Yes, that's correct, Ms.
So I guess people in Windsor are happy with the investments of the battery plant, because as of now, there's 1,000 new jobs that were created, and it's growing to 2,500 jobs. So I just want to make sure that the narrative coming from the Conservative team here is consequential. Do you
Minister,
agree
I
with the
just-
investments in
No,
the EV battery plant or not?
Sure we do. I just
Okay,
want to make
good.
sure
Well, that's
that
great.
those jobs are secured. So will you
Absolutely.
commit to making sure of that for us? And will you commit to ensuring Stellantis pays back the money that we've given them if they don't continue to employ people at the Brampton plant?
Kathy, we're on board. We both agree.
Well, I don't see a definite plan. It always seems like the Liberals are pouring money out without a plan, and we don't often see the results that we need.
Listen, that's easy to say. You know, I'm sorry, but I don't know why we're playing politics here. We're in a global competition to attract investments. We were able to get an investment from Stellantis, which is a joint venture between a Korean company, and Nexstar, which is a joint venture between LG and Stellantis, in creating 2,500 jobs in your riding in the wonderful city of Windsor that I look forward going to very soon. This was a pivotal moment for the community. I understand there's a lot of anxiety. I understand that people in the sector are scared of losing their jobs. But at the time where there is a pressure against the sector, having new investments is fundamental. So we should work together to make sure that we're fighting for the jobs at Brampton, but keeping the jobs and creating new ones in Windsor. And I don't know why there is a competition between both. I think we can do both.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Ms. Borelli. That's time.
So, Mr. Jennings, you talked about in order to do these redactions, you consulted with your department, you consulted with Stellantis. Did you consult with the minister on these redactions?
Thank you for the question. No, we did not interact with the minister or the minister's office related to the redactions.
So you're given free rein and the minister has no oversight to what the department does?
I'm just stating the process we followed for the redactions for this contract. We were satisfied that the spirit of what was requested was followed by Stellantis, as has been the case in previous cases where we've had interactions with companies related to redactions. We felt that the company was open to a very small amount of redactions and sharing the documents in closed doors meetings.
Well, I hope you leave today with the impression that members of Parliament are not satisfied with the state of the documents as they are. We requested unredacted documents, and as has been outlined before, there is a process that has been established previously on how we could do that, and this is not being followed. Has the minister seen the fully unredacted contract?
I certainly would, if she has, it wouldn't have been through my office, so my sense is no. I've actually not seen the fully unredacted version myself.
Really? Okay. As far as departments go, I mean, I find it a little bit rich that only maybe 4 or 6 other people other than, I mean, because you said everybody at the table had seen it earlier, now you're saying you haven't. But to say that there's only been 4, maybe 6 other people that have seen this contract, I mean, has Privy Council, has PCO seen this contract unredacted?
So my sense is no, they would not have seen it. We really treat these documents with a lot of care. So at the end of the day, it's on a need-to-know basis to be able to see the full contract. I've not needed to know this contract. I wasn't negotiated while I was deputy, so I've not needed to see the documents. Had it been negotiated when I was deputy, then I would have seen the document.
Okay, so the previous deputy minister saw the contract.
Well, I'm assuming that. I don't know that for a fact.
Okay, what about legal? Like, obviously, there's some legal folks that would have to see it. Is there a legal department that would have seen this?
So that is a good question. I'll turn it to my team just to say how typically legal is involved with looking at contracts, if that's okay with you.
Briefly, please.
So I think, as was said earlier, we have a standard contract that is developed with legal. Legal gets involved in discussions around specific clauses if there is debate and negotiation and we're trying to land in a position and there's legal risk. But typically, would they review the full thing, Denis, before? I don't think they do. They would see clauses if they were outside the standard. Because we have a template agreement where our clauses are the same. And then what we typically negotiate with the company are the specifics with regards to their statement of work, their benefit commitments, and the like. Those are more about the project and what we're trying, and they're less about the legal commitments.
Okay, so you're telling me the legal team for a $15 billion contract doesn't see the entire contract?
They would be pulled in where clauses are deviating from what we would typically negotiate, would be my understanding. Denis, is there anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, I think there are obviously lots of clauses on those that they have seen, so they would have a real sense of the whole contract.
Okay, so you're telling me though that like somebody from legal, there should be more than, I would assume that there's somebody that's overseeing the entirety of this contract. You're telling me that it's a piecemeal approach to how we're dealing with these contracts. Then how come legal hasn't seen the entire contract?
We enter into a negotiation. We have a term sheet that outlines the terms for which how we're going to approach the negotiation. And we have a standard template for our contribution agreements that has been vetted by legal. We then enter into negotiations. That negotiation is led under my team. Under my team, I have an operation group, which is led by Denis. I have a financial group that is led by another DG. And then our industry sector, Benoit is here today, is involved from a market perspective. As well as then legal will be pulled in if there is disputes with regards to specific clauses that deviate from our template. We keep a team small with what comes to the negotiation of these, and when we go forward for approvals, whether that is to cabinet or to treasury board, or if it's going up for ministerial approval to execute through a project summary form, we summarize the key points of that agreement, what is being achieved, the financial aspects of that, the benefit commitments, so that everyone has a clear view of what is being agreed to.
That's more than 4 people.
Thanks. We'll now go to Ms. Khalid for 5 minutes, please. And just an update, we are still trying with Stellantis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our officials for being here today. I'll start with asking, what's the relationship between the minister, the minister's office, and the department in terms of negotiating contracts and then redacting them when there's requests for them to be made public?
Yeah. So the answer depends on at what point in time we're at. Obviously, if we're negotiating a contract and ultimately we do need approval from the minister to kind of proceed. So in those cases, a minister will have seen the terms of what the contract has been negotiated to be able to sign off. And if the contracts are over a certain amount, we have to go through Cabinet and Treasury Board to be able to get those approvals. Post fact, so in this case is what we're talking about. So we have a sort of a new minister that was not involved in the negotiations. So there's no need for her to see the entire contract. So we brief her on as needed in terms of some elements of the contract to be able to satisfy the questions that she has related to it. And she's asked many questions recently on Stellantis, given that the decision for them to move the Jeep Compass production from what was planned for Brampton into a facility in the U.S. But we don't interact with her or her office in terms of what redactions take place. It is a contract between ISED and the company. So at the end of the day, the contractual obligation is to the department, and we make sure that we respect that by asking the company what are the redactions that they be willing to live with that's commercially confidential to be able to share with the committee. We did, in those discussions, encourage the company to be as open as possible, given the requests to make sure that this committee has as much as possible. And they've agreed to do that under the condition that the discussions would take place in closed doors in terms of what is a content of what was shared with this committee.
I appreciate that. I am actually really devastated that Stellantis has made this move, because this is my constituents and my city and my region whose jobs are directly impacted. So, and then for Stellantis' failure to appear today, it just adds fuel to my fire to stand up for my constituents. But for yourselves as a department, can you explain the difficult situation that you're in as a department, where you're trying to protect Canada's ability to negotiate contracts, to bring in investments, while also making sure that our taxpayer dollars are spent effectively and are actually used for what we need them to be used for?
Yeah, so I mean that's in some ways that's the crux of the issue. Is at the end, we need to have full information, including commercially confidential, to be able to come to an agreement. Otherwise, we're not effectively deploying the money that has been asked to do. So that's why we take the approach of making sure that for the due diligence phase, and in terms of some of the commitments that are in the actual contract, we need to have commercially confidential elements of it to be able to have the contract we have with those companies be as effective as possible. And that, just to be clear, Stellantis, it's all the companies, 152 plus companies that we have agreements with, that essentially agree to share commercially confidential information with us so we can do our work. What they also insist on, which are clauses that are standard in these agreements, is that we protect what is commercially confidential so that their competitive position is not ultimately broken and compromised by participating in a program that is supporting innovation and risk-taking by the private sector.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate that. So I'll ask, have there been any freedom of informations put in for any of the documents that we're discussing today?
Sorry, I missed the beginning of that sentence.
Have there been any FOIs put in for the documents that we're discussing today?
Sorry, I'm just not familiar with that term.
Freedom of information or access to
okay.
information, sorry.
Has there been? Okay, no, I was not aware of, and my team is telling me there's not been an access to information request related to this document.
Okay, thank you. So I will ask you then, how can companies trust government, and how can workers trust government? How can taxpayers trust government? Because while you're on the front lines of bringing all of these three stakeholders together, what do you think are next steps to take when we're dealing with negotiations like this, when we're trying to make sure that we're attracting good investment into Canada, and to make sure that people aren't taking our hard-earned taxpayer dollars and then moving off to other parts of the world?
I'm afraid we're well past our time, but could you offer a short response if possible?
Sure. I mean, I guess as short as possible will be trust. Trust is at the core of these agreements. So at the end of the day, the only way we can actually come to an agreement is that we both trust that both parties, the government and in this case Stellantis, trust each other that we'll be respecting all the terms of the agreement. And for us, it's fundamental. We're at a point in time where we're expecting Stellantis to respect all the terms in those agreements, and they're expecting us to also respect those terms, which include not divulging information that's commercially confidential.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have trouble just understanding why there are so many redactions in this agreement that taxpayers, Canadian taxpayers and Canadian public are interested in. So I'm just going to pick out a few that stands out to me. So in section 6.35, it mentions the Stellantis' commitments, which are legally binding obligations to make research and development investments into facilities in Canada. But the dollar amounts of these R&D commitments are redacted. Why is that? I mean, Canadian taxpayers are expecting value for their investment, that if they're going to, if taxpayer funds are being used to fund this multi-billion-dollar so-called investment, the Liberals like to call it an investment, that there will be some return on that investment. So why would such an important figure be redacted?
So I'm going to answer with a broad statement just related to what I asked in my opening statement, which I'm happy to discuss, is that we do not discuss the actual terms of the contract in a public setting. The agreement we've had with Stellantis is that we would share the redacted version and have discussions of it in a closed-door session.
But I'm asking why these specific terms are redacted. I'm not talking about the terms themselves. Why are these dollar amounts? There's some of the other dollar amounts aren't redacted. I mean, the crux of this is that Canadian taxpayers are trying to figure out whether Stellantis are going to create those jobs, whether they're going to make those capital expenditure investments, whether they're going to do the R&D here in Canada. And you redacted some of the most important information, and you left in all the boilerplate legal clause, like the confidentiality agreement, the governing law clause, but the most important information was redacted. I mean, who are we trying to protect here?
Okay, so I'm not going to comment specifically on anything within the contract that was shared under a condition that we talk about it in closed doors. However, I can say that in our discussions with Stellantis, they outlined to us for every redaction of what they felt, why it felt to be necessary to be protected commercially, and we were comfortable with the redactions that they proposed.
So the interest of Stellantis comes first before the Canadian public. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that at all. Actually, I'm actually saying that Stellantis has shown an openness to sharing more information with this committee than would be publicly available, to make sure that there is a full discussion and scrutiny on the contract.
Well, we talked about parliamentary privilege earlier at this meeting, and we know that these compelling disclosure of this document is exempt from an unredacted state is exempt from the confidentiality provision in the agreement. So clearly, these redactions are done voluntarily between the department officials. Is that right?
Well, under the terms of the agreement, Canada must discuss. In this case, our department, ISED, has to discuss with Stellantis any disclosure of documents and what redactions they feel they have. Otherwise, we're breaking the contract, which requires us to treat information confidentially unless the company is willing to share it.
So you mentioned. So what is so commercially sensitive about these documents? I mean, the clauses. We're not talking about spreadsheets with names of employees and all that. We're just talking about clauses in the overarching agreement. So I just fail to see what's so commercially sensitive about this. Like, it's not industrial designs or schematics and trade secrets that we're disclosing. It's just the text of an agreement. So it's just the most basic outline of the relationship between the government and this multi-billion-dollar company. And don't you think that taxpayers should have some closure in seeing what's in this document?
Yeah. I could answer that question, but I'd say the best authority to talk about the justification of what is commercially confidential proposed and the redactions proposed would actually be Stellantis. That's who we consulted under the terms of the agreement that we signed, is for them to identify for us what they felt was commercially confidential. So I think that would be the best to ask Stellantis that question.
That you discussed with Stellantis, or your department discussed with Stellantis previously, to determine which issues were considered commercially sensitive, too sensitive for Canadians to understand and to be made aware of. So, how do you reconcile that?
I have to interrupt. That is our time.
Right. Thank you, and thank you for having me at committee today. I'm not a usual member. Thank you to the witnesses for being here today. I'll start with Ms. Penwarden. We're talking about creating financial or incentives for people to protect their own properties. I noticed that there was no recommendation to provide a tax credit for, mitigating fire or flood risk in homes. Is that something that you think would be useful in encouraging Canadians in high-risk areas to protect their homes?
I think anything we can do to help Canadians pay attention to this would be good. There are a number of actions and incentives provided, for example, at the municipal level at the moment, provided by the government. People can just access them freely. Our main challenge, if I'm honest, is actually making everyone aware of those things and then encouraging them to actually act. So there's an education and then action component that if they work together, I think we would see a bigger take-up. And so there's definitely options around that.
Kelowna this summer on a wildfire tour, and they had just done a Fire Smart where they were telling people to remove their juniper bushes next to their properties. And yet the local school was doing a fundraiser a week later selling people juniper bushes so they could plant them right next to their properties. So your thoughts on a tax credit for home renovations, for putting sprinkler systems or flood mitigation systems? Any thoughts, Mr. Kovacs? Ms. Guilbeault?
On side, as Susan was touching on, any incentives are a good thing. Anything that brings us awareness. We've been promoting more coordination, so we'd like to see the federal governments coordinating with the provinces and the municipal governments and the insurance industry in a unified approach, but tax incentives can be a very helpful part of that.
I know there's been, over the past number of years, at least 5 years that I've been watching it, there's been a lot of talk about creating a national flood insurance policy. I mean, that doesn't cover all, but as you said, Dr. Feltmate, basement flooding is the largest insurable loss in Canada currently. Do you know where we're at on national flood insurance policy in this country?
Right now, it remains a work in progress. There's a group called Climate Proof Canada that is an assemblage of insurers and NGOs and academics that are looking at what would be the steps to be engaged to launch this program. But right now, I think it's sort of in a sort of sitting level status. It's not moving forward or backwards at the moment, I don't think.
Okay, Mr. Kovacs, or
I'd only add that there's maybe 10% of homeowners that can't get flood insurance right now. To make a decision to put a program in place is something we need right now.
So the program wouldn't be for the 90% that donate, it would be for the 10% of people that can't get insurance coverage.
Most of us live in places where the risk of river flooding is not serious, 90% or so, and flood insurance is offered in the private sector. It's been taken up quite a bit. It's fairly affordable. The problem is those with high or extreme risk, and that's where coverage is, where most of the flooding happens and where most of the risk is. And to move forward to make a decision, having a program would be very helpful.
Now, I've seen some, different models. The Americans have a model through FEMA. I think the UK has just launched a model. What are some recommendations you could make on things to avoid if you were crafting a policy like that, based on,
I don't want to sound flippant, but usually what the Americans do is not working.
Okay. Yeah, I see it's about a $20 billion shortfall in their program through FEMA. I see that the UK had a policy where they would only provide subsidies for the insurance premiums for 25 years. Can you tell us why that is? Do you know why that is?
So, frankly, coming up with a program so that all Canadians are protected against flood and other hazards, so that you have insurance. If you experience a loss, you can recover. There's money available, is really important. That's really critical to have. Better than having a program where money is paid after loss is to not have a loss. So the commitment in the UK was to try over 25 years for a national commitment to avoid any risk of loss, put in flood defense, put in all kinds of protection. Some of us are a little skeptical whether that'll get completed in 25 years, whether there's enough funding, but the concept was it would take some time. 25 years was the time chosen politically, 25 years to not need flood insurance because you'd have protection.
Interesting. So the government kind of set itself a deadline of 25 years to protect all the communities that were at risk of flood so that there wouldn't be a need for the flood insurance program. Interesting. Yeah, one reason I heard is that they wanted to give people 25 years to financially plan for a future where they wouldn't have subsidized flood insurance, so that they could possibly sell their property and move to a safer area, or that they could, have 25 years to invest in mitigations. Is that another reason why to have a 25?
Fully agree. Absolutely correct. To take the risk down to an acceptable level, that in the next 25 years we could have enough flood protection that most homes would not experience extraordinary flood risk would be a good thing. But there's still risk. I mean, you can have these very, very extreme events.
Now, can you tell us I've got 1 minute, is the DFAA program successful? And if it's not, how is it failing?
So the DFA is very proactive in the sense that it says fairly clearly, we will not pay again if you choose to rebuild in a high-risk area without the appropriate mitigation measure. And I think this is a very strong step in the right direction in that it forces, it supports that understanding of risk and that risk mapping and that mitigation planning to get to a place where we...
The changes made this year in DFA were outstanding.
What were those changes?
To focus on risk reduction, to focus on a future where we are truly trying to have more focus on reducing risk in addition to paying for losses.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner. We'll get right at it. 6-minute round starting with Mr. Barrett. Go ahead, sir.
The Liberals' Bill C-15 creates a new power for ministers to exempt companies from federal laws, and this can be done in secret. This opens the door to conflicts of interest that Parliament and your office might never see. If a minister can grant exemptions and they can be granted to companies that they are connected to, and even conceal their orders from public release, won't this at a minimum make it harder to detect that a conflict of interest exists? But doesn't it also create the opportunity for real conflicts of interest to occur with no effective oversight whatsoever?
Just because the minister is authorized by statute to do something doesn't mean he can avoid the conflict of interest to act. So if it is part of his function to exempt the company, he can do that. If there, however, is under the Act a conflict of interest, as you suggest in your example, then he has to recuse himself. The Act is quite clear. He cannot participate in the decision. He can't even be in the room. He has to leave and absence himself when that decision is made.
It appears to be a systemic gap that's being created, though, Commissioner. It's a path for ministers to bypass the usual parliamentary safeguards and ethical scrutiny by shifting decisions into private exemption orders. Does that not present a cause for concern for parliamentarians?
I'm not sure I follow you. How, Mr. Barrett? Where is the shifting taking place here?
The effect of their orders is not public, and they can exempt the normal release of information that we would see, and it's for a period of years, and there would be no detection that it has occurred. So we assume that the minister leaves the room, but oftentimes we find out only that a breach has occurred because of the release of information, access to information requests, inquiries of ministry, order paper questions, and the like.
When you say the exemption is secret, you mean the Act authorizes the minister to make a decision and it not to publicize it?
The information does not need to be publicized in the Gazette.
Yeah, but if the company is exempted, that means if they weren't exempted, they couldn't do this. So presumably, the exemption has to be published somewhere.
Well, one would hope that through the transparency that's required, then yes, but that's not the effect of the Budget Implementation Act, Bill C-15. Your question, your question that I've provoked is born out of the same expectation I think that Canadians have about transparency and openness that we expect from government, when instead there's we're moving off the path of normal government and into exemptions to all laws except the criminal code is what the Act says.
Okay, well, first of all, C-15 is not law yet. It has to be passed by Parliament. Secondly, the obligation not to act in contravention of the conflict of interest is there. The minister cannot make such a thing. Now, you posit that he will make an exemption which benefits himself and people do not know about it. I mean, sorry, I always have difficulty answering a hypothetical question. If you give me an actual case and actual facts, I can answer that. I don't quite see how we can have a secret exemption. The effect of the exemption will be public, and people will ask, like you, why is this company doing it when normally an act would require A, B, and C? Where do they get the authority?
To be clear,
so therefore, somebody will say there is an exemption. Here it is.
So to be clear, I don't see the mechanism in the legislation that would publish the exemptions that are able to be made to all laws except the Criminal Code, including the Lobbying Act, including access to information laws, and including the Conflict of Interest Act.
Shield themselves from paying Canadian taxes. We all know Brookfield is Canada's #1 tax dodger. As chair of Brookfield, the Prime Minister helped the company avoid $6.5 billion through offshore tax havens. This Prime Minister, we all know, tabled the most expensive budget in Canadian history outside of COVID, ballooning the budget to unprecedented highs. We are left with higher taxes, slower growth, and generational debt. Canadians are lining up at the food banks in record numbers, 23,000 in my city. The Prime Minister needs to come clean. Is he here to serve Canadians or Brookfield and his friends?
The honourable member for Whitby.
Mr. Speaker, residents in Whitby, like communities across Canada, expect Parliament to pass the Budget Implementation Act. Why? Because it delivers the generational investments that they've been asking for. That means parties opposite need to stop the procedural delays and stop blocking affordable housing, healthcare, and housing infrastructure that Canadians rely on. This budget bill advances the top priorities in my riding: affordable housing, our waterfront redevelopment, and long overdue improvements to healthcare. It helps build the healthcare infrastructure families need so they can get the care closer to home and shorten wait times. In Durham, that means real progress on the Whitby Hospital, on our hospice in Whitby, and members opposite have already voted against $5 billion in healthcare infrastructure funding. The Build Community Strong Fund and Build Canada Homes will help municipalities rapidly increase housing supply. For Whitby, that unlocks over 11,000 new units at our waterfront. Mr. Speaker, I'll keep...
The honourable member for Edmonton Gateway.
Mr. Speaker, a pipeline to the Pacific is absolutely necessary to unlock Canada's energy potential, moving 1 million barrels a day to Asia at world prices, creating good-paying Canadian jobs, boosting take-home pay, and strengthening a truly self-reliant economy. That's why Conservatives introduced a motion which uses the same language as the Liberals' own MOU with Alberta. But the Liberal caucus is divided, with the Prime Minister himself claiming that the pipeline must have BC consent. The Prime Minister is saying one thing to Alberta and another thing to British Columbia. Let's be clear, Mr. Speaker. Under the Constitution, only the federal government has authority over inter-provincial pipelines. The only thing standing in the way is Liberal delay. Will the government vote for our motion to approve a pipeline to the Pacific, just like the Prime Minister promised in that MOU?
The honourable member for London West.
Conservatives love to ask the same questions over and over again about supporting Canadians with disabilities. They hold press conferences, repeat the same slogans, pretend to care, Mr. Speaker, but when it's time to actually remove the barriers and deliver supports that Canadians actually need, what do, Mr. Speaker? They delay. Budget 2025 delivers actions. We're breaking down the red tape that blocks access to Canada Disability Benefit. We're investing $115 million, Mr. Speaker, to lower barriers and provide a one-time supplemental payment for every disability tax credit certification or recertification that opens the doors to benefit. Mr. Speaker, that's more than 6 million Canadians with disabilities that should not need a lawyer to access support. And that's why we're simplifying the disability tax credit process. As promised in the fall economic statement, the benefit will exempt from the taxable income because support should actually mean support. Conservatives cannot claim to stand with Canadians with disabilities while they're voting to keep these barriers exactly where they are. So the question is simple, Mr. Speaker. Would they pass Bill C-15 or keep...
The honourable member for Foothills.
Canadians to judge him by their experience at the grocery store. Well, what Canadians see on the shelves now is Liberal failure. The food price report confirms what Canadians already know. Food prices are out of control and they're going to get worse. In 2015, when the Liberals took office, the average weekly food bill was about $160. In a decade, it has doubled to $360. That's $17,500 to feed a family of 4 in Canada. That is unbelievable. And the food price report told Canadians it's going to get worse. The largest increase ever, another $1,000 a year for a family of 4. Instead of lowering prices, the Liberals are piling on taxes, making it more expensive to grow food, transport food, and buy the food. Food inflation in Canada is 50% higher than the Liberals' own target. It's rising 48% higher in Canada than it is in the United States. It's time to end the misery. Will they not end their taxes and their hidden taxes on food so Canadians can afford Christmas dinner?
The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Conservative Party of Canada, in particular the leader of the Conservative Party, just doesn't get it.
No,
it's about building Canada strong,
right.
Mr. Speaker. The budget is there, the support is there for Canadians. And while every Liberal member of Parliament and the Prime Minister is focused on building Canada strong, we get the Conservative Party solely focused on the party's best interest. It's time that they put Canadians' interests first, Mr. Speaker, and that means allowing legislation to pass.
That's right.
Bail reform legislation.
That's right.
Budget legislation.
That's right.
There's only one thing standing in the way of its passage. It's the Conservative Party of Canada and the leader of the Conservative Party. Get off their back ends and get to work.
Oral questions.
Let's go.
The honourable leader
Pierre
of the
in the
opposition.
batter's box. Let's go.
Mr. Speaker, Christmas is around the corner, but the Liberals are already acting like the Grinch. Canadians are the ones who should be unhappy because of grocery costs. They want delicious, affordable food. But according to Dalhousie University, Canadians will have to pay $1,000 more next year for groceries. So it'll be a total of $17,600 a year, and all because of this government's inflationary taxes and deficits. Why is this Liberal government forcing Canadians to feed a big, big government rather than feeding their families? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I know that it's Monday and my colleagues seem happy, yet the Leader of the Opposition seems to be dreaming. He's talking about an imaginary tax. Canadians know better, Mr. Speaker. There's good news in our budget. Our major measure in this budget is a tax break for 22 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker. These measures will help Canada grow. We will grow more jobs. We will grow our economy. I hope the Conservatives are going to wake up before Christmas and vote for our budget, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, this Christmas, the Prime Minister is the Grinch of the grocery store. According to Dalhousie University, the cost of groceries will be up $1,000 in 2026 for a total of $17,600 just to feed a family of four. The Liberal Grinch, who brings in an industrial carbon tax on the farm equipment, fertilizer, and food processors. The Liberal Grinch with a food packaging tax. The Liberal Grinch with a $78 billion inflationary deficit. Will he get rid of all of these hidden grocery taxes so Canadians can feed themselves at Christmas?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it's Monday and we have good news. Canadians knows it. It's all in the budget, Mr. Speaker. There's a lot of good news.
On peut pas lever le livre de cette façon là.
One can't raise a book like that. It's one thing to read or quote from it, but we can't wave it around.
Speaker, I understand. I think that the budget would be a great Christmas gift, Mr. Speaker, to all Canadians. I would just hope that the Conservative would wake up and make sure that they vote for the budget before Christmas, Mr. Speaker. We're going to build our nation. We're going to create jobs. We're going to build housing. We're going to create infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, this is the best gift they can give to Canadians. I just hope they'll do the right thing for the
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
If they want to combat their own cost of living crisis, the Liberals would focus on approving pipelines that would sell more oil, boost our Canadian dollar so Canadians could buy affordable food and homes. In fact, there was such a pipeline, the Northern Gateway. Liberals killed it in a 2016 cabinet decision, a decision the Prime Minister supported. They further blocked it with a Liberal ban on tanker traffic off the northwest BC coast. The Prime Minister claims to have changed his mind in a recent MOU. So will he be able to change the minds of fellow Liberals and vote for his own MOU and allow a pipeline to the Pacific?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, it's a sad day because the Conservatives are divided. The Conservative premiers across this country support this MOU in its entirety. The Leader of the Opposition is seeking to divide this country, and we can see through that cynical tactic. The MOU is about building a strong country. It's about doing it in an environmentally responsible way in partnership with Indigenous peoples. It would be great if the opposition joined all the other Conservatives and all of us in building this country strong.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, that's exactly what we're trying to do. In the spirit of Christmas, I decided to take a great act of generosity and lift the words right out of the Prime Minister's MOU in order to support a pipeline to the Pacific and a repeal or an overriding of the Liberal tanker ban. Now, of course, it would mean Liberals would have to admit they were wrong to block that pipeline. They were wrong about the tanker ban. Will, in the spirit of Christmas, Liberals admit they were wrong, vote for their own wording, approve a pipeline, and get rid of the tanker ban?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, in the spirit of Christmas, I'd invite the Leader of the Opposition not to cherry-pick parts of the MOU, but to support the entire MOU, which is what all of the Conservative premiers across this country are doing, which is what this this side is doing. It's how we will build strong. Stop being cynical and build this country with us.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, I think the only division here is that the Prime Minister is divided against himself. The Prime Minister opposed the pipeline to the Pacific. Now he claims he supports it. He supported the tanker ban. Now he claims he opposed it. Mr. Speaker, this is the Prime Minister who said he wanted to keep half of our oil in the ground, and now he pretends to have changed his mind. He signed an MOU. He says one thing in BC, the opposite in Alberta, and here in the House of Commons he hides under his desk. Why would the Prime Minister stand up, take a position, and announce that he's voting in favor of his MOU language to build a pipeline?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Speaker, the Premier of Alberta supports the entire MOU. The Premier of Saskatchewan supports the entire MOU. The Premier of Ontario supports the entire MOU. It would be great if the Conservatives would join us in supporting the entire MOU and building this country strong.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I think the minister is suggesting that there are parts of his own MOU that he does not support. The MOU says there would be a pipeline to the Pacific. I took the wording right out of the agreement, that there would be an overriding of the tanker ban. I took the wording for that right out of the MOU. And now the Prime Minister is hiding under his desk. Liberal members on one side of the country are saying they're against, while they're pretending in Alberta that they are in favor. So why don't they stand up in the House of Commons, look Canadians in the eye, take one position, vote for a pipe to the Pacific, and override the tanker?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and all of us and all Conservative premiers and most people in this country supports every part of that MOU, Mr. Speaker. What's more, the Leader of the Opposition stands in his place and says to the people of Alberta, you know what? That little thing that they said was progress for our province, that made us a leader in renewable technologies, made us a leader in nuclear energy, made us a leader in interties, made us a leader in conventional electricity, that's all off. I just want this one thing.
L'honorable député de Saint-Jean.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, for weeks now, the Conservatives have been working to sabotage Bill C-9 and the Bloc Québécois amendment that would eliminate from the criminal code the religious exception which allows hate speech. But, surprise, surprise, the Conservatives are not alone. We found out that behind the scenes, the Prime Minister's office itself is also sabotaging the work of the Bloc Québécois and of the Minister of Justice. Clearly, on every issue, to find out where the Prime Minister stands, we just need to find out where the Conservatives stand. Why would he rather sabotage his own bill than get rid of the religious exemption?
L'honorable Ministre de la Justice.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In order to combat hate throughout the country, we need to take action. In order to do so, this House must pass C-9 so that we can guarantee protection to communities. Now, as for the religious exception, we need to work with different groups and parties to understand different perspectives, but this is the responsibility of the Justice Committee, and I look forward to hearing what they decide after their next meeting. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, for 6 years now, 6 years, the Liberal government has been promising legislation to combat hate speech. 6 years of making promises to groups that feel threatened. 6 years of saying that we must take action against hate. For once, their bill had a shot at passing, as long as they got rid of the religious exception, which the National Assembly unanimously supports. Once again, the Liberals backtracked. Why did the Prime Minister side with the Conservatives and the religious right over Quebec and over groups that are worried?
Honourable Ministre de la Justice.
The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, it's clear that we have a responsibility to fight crime in general, including hate crime. Our government has a responsibility to put forward measures to combat hatred. It's our duty, for instance, to improve legislation.
Can to fight crime in this country. We've seen delay and obstruction from the Conservative part. I look forward to collaborating with all parties in a minority parliament, and I will look forward very much to the recommendations from the Justice Committee as they consider potential amendments to the current bill.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, last Thursday, members of the Justice Committee were set to vote on repealing the religious exemption, but the Liberals cancelled the committee meeting, and everything suggests that they will cancel it again tomorrow and Thursday. The Liberals are reneging on their agreement with the Bloc Québécois, and they are letting Quebecers down. The Liberals are pulling the plug on C9. The Prime Minister is rebuking his Justice Minister for choosing Quebec's side over that of right-wing religious groups. The Liberals' great concern about combating hate seems to be falling by the wayside, Mr. Speaker. How will they justify their about-face after so many broken promises? The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Particular bill, since inception, was designed to combat hate in this country and to offer protections for minorities, including religious minorities, who are facing hate. My priority is to see this bill adopted so we can offer protections for communities who frankly don't deserve to be faced with the hate crimes that they have been subjected to. That's going to require that we collaborate with different parties who have different points of view. I thank my colleague for the conversations that we've been able to share. I look forward to seeing the decision that's going to be taken, not by an individual minister, but by the Justice Committee as they consider potential amendments going forward. I very much look forward to see the results of those deliberations, and I hope we can see the swift adoption of this bill.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
The Prime Minister said that he should be judged by the price of food at the grocery store. Well, the food price report gave the Liberals a failing grade. It confirmed that food prices are going to increase $1,000 a family next year, a cost they simply can't afford. But Canadians didn't need a report to tell them that. They are experiencing it every single day. Canadian food banks are on the brink. In Foothills, the Okotoks Food Bank served more than 21,000 families last year. That is unbelievable. Why is the Prime Minister forcing Canadians to food banks instead of reducing taxes on farmers, fuel, and food?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
He likes to talk about farmers, but let's talk about what farmers were going through last year. 66% of agricultural land in Canada was experiencing drought, extreme drought, Mr. Speaker, which drove up prices of beef. And not only that, Mr. Speaker, all across the world, prices for imports like coffee and tea and cocoa and strawberries and oranges went up as a result of climate change, Mr. Speaker. We focus on the things we can control, and you know what we can control? Putting more money in the pockets of Canadians. Why won't they get on board?
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
This didn't happen yesterday. A decade ago, when the Liberals took office, the average weekly food bill was about $160 a week. A decade later, it has doubled to $340 a week. That's $17,500 to feed a family of four. That is unbelievable in a country like Canada. And our Canadian food banks can't manage the load. And these aren't just strangers. These are friends, families, co-workers, neighbors, all relying on food banks. Why is the Prime Minister sticking to his ideology, increasing taxes to grow the food, transport the food, and buy the food, instead of lowering those taxes so Canadians...
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Focused on imaginary taxes. We're focused on what actually helps Canadians. And you know what helps Canadians, Mr. Speaker? More money in their pockets. A decade ago, the Canada Child Benefit was worth up to $6,000. It's now worth up to $7,200, Mr. Speaker. It's kept pace with inflation. It's made sure that families have what they need to buy those children the food they need. And Mr. Speaker, we haven't stopped there. Everything we do is focused on making sure Canadians can weather the tides, no matter their good times or bad.
The Honourable Member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
This Prime Minister told Canadians he should be judged by prices at the grocery store. Well, the results are in, and the Liberals have failed. In my community of Brantford, City Council declared a food insecurity emergency. Liberal inflationary spending is causing a run at food banks. Grocery bills have doubled, and the outlook for 2026 is even worse. After all this damage, will these Liberals finally admit that their taxes and reckless spending caused this crisis and scrap them now before even more Canadians go hungry?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let's drill down into the report everybody seems to be talking about. Let's quote, food prices are influenced by a variety of global factors, including climate change, geopolitical conflicts, input and energy costs, food distribution, food processing, and regulations. Mr. Speaker, it's not the Liberal Party. It's what's happening around the world, everywhere around the world. Let's get serious about this and help Canadians.
The honourable member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
Canadians are tired of excuses. They want groceries they can afford. 100%. On the food price report, they put it bluntly, if 2025 was difficult for Canadian households, 2026 won't be easier. After the most expensive Prime Minister in Canadian history has already shattered household budgets and forced families into desperation, Canadians are now being told that pain will only deepen. Will the Prime Minister commit today, yes or no, to scrapping the industrial carbon tax and the fuel tax on food production, or will he keep choosing ideology over empty stomachs?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we've already gone down this path. Canadian Climate Institute has come out and said that it's non-negligible in the price of food. The industrial carbon tax is 0.008. Mr. Speaker, we know definitely well that that's not the case. There's other factors in the world that are taking place. A geopolitical trade war, climate change, drought in the prairie provinces. These are all adding to the rise in cost of food, Mr. Speaker. They know that, so let's get on board and treat Canadians fair.
The honourable member for Cambridge.
Mr. Speaker, no one expected the verdict to be this tragic when judging the Prime Minister by prices at the grocery store. I heard from an 82-year-old woman who was forced to leave her hometown of Cambridge and her family just to afford groceries and rent. And Lacey, a single mum from Cambridge, told local media she spends her days asking, where's the sale? Clipping coupons and skipping meals just to feed her son. This is the reality for thousands of Canadians. Families are forced to buy whatever they can afford, not what's healthy or good for them, if they eat at all. So when so many families, seniors and working adults are going hungry, how can this government possibly justify any more inflationary taxes?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, that leader's heart was 2 sizes too small when it comes to delivering affordability for Canadians. We cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. We cut the tax for first-time homebuyers. We are continuing to deliver on affordability, school food program, personal service support, tax credit. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we're focused on affordability. It's time for that leader to let the light in, let his heart grow, join us in delivering affordability for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Les Etchemins, Lévis. Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister told Canadians that he should be judged on the cost of groceries. Well, I hope he has a good lawyer because the verdict is brutal. According to Le Journal de Montréal, 36% of Quebecers are experiencing food insecurity. What's most tragic in all this is that 41% of them are employed. Hunger is hitting so hard that Quebec food banks responded to, get this, a record 3.1 million requests in 1 month. When will the Lee's Liberals finally stop their inflationary spending so that Canadians can feed themselves properly, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our investments are helping families. Budget 2025 contains many investments for children and families. This includes the school food program, which will help families save up to $800 a year. There's also the Canada Child Benefit, which can be about $8,000 a year for up to $8,000 a year for children under 6. We are here for Canadian families and children on this side of the House. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Les Etchemins, Lévis. Well, Mr. Speaker, what they're doing is just not working. And there's a family in my riding of 2 adults and 3 children. They are suffocated by the cost of living. They're spending the winter in a trailer. They were so ashamed that they didn't dare ask for food. A frontline worker was the one who alerted the food bank. Now the food price report confirms that groceries will cost $1,000 more next year. When will this Prime Minister stop his inflationary spending to give dignity back to Quebecers, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Secretary of State. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we take these matters very seriously. We are not fixating on imaginary taxes. We are here to help Canadian families. One of our first measures was to give a tax break to 22 million Canadians. That's how we are helping children. That's how we're helping families. And this is the work we are doing. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, Washington is calling on the federal government to do more to combat the problem of discount drivers. Even Americans are fed up with these dangerous drivers on our roads and on theirs. Now, yes, the Liberals have taken up our request to force companies to report the income of self-employed drivers, but the American embassy has told them that while this is a step in the right direction, it is not a cure-all. The Bloc Québécois suggested 10 measures. The Liberals only took one of them. And now they think the job is done, Mr. Speaker. As for the 9 other measures, they are shirking what they should be doing. When will they take the issue seriously? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Quite the opposite, Mr. Speaker. We take this matter very seriously, which is why we have put forward tangible measures, tax measures, information sharing measures, as well as measures in the Canada Labour Code. We are taking action. And do you know what? Surprise, surprise, the Bloc Québécois voted against our budget. The very same budget which will fix this federal issue of Chauffeur Inc. and will help us move forward on this file. So I hope the Bloc Québécois will wake up. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. If the Liberals had done enough to address the problem of low-cost drivers, the United States would not be demanding that they do their job. Washington is growing impatient. We need an official inquiry to shed light on this industry. The industry exploits workers, and especially foreign workers. The industry is spreading like cancer. We must prevent temporary immigrants from working in the trucking industry. We need a public registry of offending companies, including penalties. Not only are the Liberals failing to act, they are obstructing the committee's work. How many more road accidents will it take for the Liberals to finally wake up and do something?
Monsieur le Président.
The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, now we've truly seen it all. The member knows full well that provinces are the ones who certify truck drivers. Provinces are the ones who inspect the trucks. Provinces are the ones who hire road controllers. And it's the same in the United States. They have states which issue driver's licenses and send their truckers up to Canada. The Bloc Québécois, for the first time in Bloc Québécois history, is asking the federal government to meddle with provincial areas of jurisdiction. Unbelievable, Mr. Speaker.
Fort McMurray Cold Lake.
The Prime Minister told Canadians that he should be judged by the prices at the grocery store. Well, most ask Santa Sarah from Go Clean Co. for something they wouldn't normally buy for themselves, a new winter coat or a fancy new vacuum. But this year, there were more asks for needs than wants. One mom from Kelowna asked for groceries. This mom shared that after rent was paid and putting $10 of gas into her car, she was left with $3 for the next 2 weeks and a baby in diapers. Does the Prime Minister think that people asking Santa for groceries is okay in this country?
The honourable member for
Mr. Speaker, our
Women
government
and
is
Gender
taking
Equality.
real action on affordability, protecting women's economic security, and empowering women across the country. We're introducing a middle-class tax cut that's going to benefit 22 million Canadians across the country, and we're making the National School Food Program permanent. This is going to feed kids at school while putting more money back into their pockets, and we're making housing more affordable through Build Canada Homes. This is going to help single mothers and keep families, give them a safe place to live. We're also making auto tax filing for 5.5 million Canadians. This is real impact for Canadians, and that includes women and families across the country, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Fort McMurray Cold Lake.
Liberal food inflation is crippling Canadian families. The Prime Minister told Canadians to judge him at the price at the grocery store, and he's failing. More and more Canadians are relying on charity simply to make ends meet. 33% of food bank users are children, and infant formula is in high demand at food banks, which is no surprise. A container now costs nearly $50, up 84% in the last 8 years. Does the Prime Minister care that feeding babies has become a daily struggle for Canadian families? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, my heart goes out to parents facing challenges, and we care about families. So while Conservatives amplify panic instead of offering a single solution, the evidence is clear. Research from the C.D. Howe Institute confirms that the Canada Child Benefit is one of the most effective tools we have to reduce child poverty and help families afford essentials. Let's be honest, Mr. Speaker, Conservatives voted against this. They voted against it then. They voted against supports now for families and children. Mr. Speaker, and their actions speak louder for themselves, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for Newmarket Aurora.
The Prime Minister once said that the grocery aisle would be his report card. Well, today in that aisle is a mother standing still, staring at the price of baby formula that has gone up 84%. She does the math in her head and wonders what she's going to cut next because feeding her baby is not optional. Under these Liberals, even that has become a source of fear and anxiety. Their policies have driven up the cost of growing, shipping and selling the food. When will this Liberal government stop piling on taxes and stop their inflationary spending and let mothers afford the formula their babies need to thrive?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Speaker, while the opposition focuses on imaginary taxes, we're focused on real supports for Canadians. And that includes, Mr. Speaker, a Canada Child Benefit that keeps up with inflation, seniors benefits that keep up with inflation, a dental care plan that allows for Canadians to get their teeth fixed for God's sake, Mr. Speaker, something that these Conservatives vote against time and again. I ask myself, Mr. Speaker, what support for Canadian would they actually vote for? Because for them, it's sink or swim.
The honourable member for Brandon Souris.
The Prime Minister told Canadians he would be judged by the cost of groceries. Well, the 60,000 Manitobans who are lined up at food banks each month have judged him. They judged him based on grocery prices that they haven't come down. They judged him because even though they are working multiple jobs, they aren't able to put food on their own tables. They have done everything right, and this Prime Minister has failed them. So the question is very simple. When will these Liberals end their inflationary spending and taxes so Canadians can afford to put food on their own kitchen tables again?
Yes, sir. The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, this is a party that voted against targeting the Canada Child Benefit to those that needed it the most. This is a party that voted against dental care for seniors. This is a party that voted against the school food program. Mr. Speaker, time and time again, this party has voted against affordability programs. Canadians can judge. Canadians know on this side of the House, we're focused on delivering affordability for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That's right.
Honourable member for Brandon Souris.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know the truth about that side of the House, and it's that under them, their grocery bills are still going up. What the Liberals have done has made life more expensive, not less. How much worse does it have to get before these Liberals realize that there are disastrous tax hikes, packaging standards, and out-of-control spending that is responsible for 60,000 Manitobans now having to rely on food banks each month just to eat? How can these guys live with themselves? Will they take ownership, cut the red tape and the spending, and bring affordability grocery prices back for hungry Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
It's hard to take that member and that party seriously, frankly, Mr. Speaker, because in the budget is actually contained a tax cut for 22 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker. They stand in the progress of that bill being advanced to help support Canadians. They voted against the National Food School Program, Mr. Speaker. And talking about food, Mr. Speaker, there was not one single thing in the Conservative platform for farmers in this country in April of 2025. That's why we're on this side of this House, Mr. Speaker. We're working for agricultural producers. We're working to help reduce taxes and to help support Canadians across this country, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, residents of Carleton have made it clear they want leadership and an economic vision for the country. Budget 2025, taxes for 22 million Canadians, makes the National Food Program for Children.
Okay, I think we all got off on the wrong foot on that one.
Congratulations on your maiden speech.
So let's order to the honourable member. Order. We'll have to take that one from the top. Okay.
Mr. Speaker, residents of Carleton have made it very clear they want real leadership and an economic vision for this country. Budget 25 cuts taxes for 22 million Canadians, makes permanent the National School Food Program, and invests tens of billions of dollars in infrastructure and major projects across the country. These are actions that will improve the lives of Canadians. Can the Minister of Finance update this House on how the Budget Implementation Act will help strengthen our economy, and why is it being stalled?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, even the Conservative can feel the passion in that question, Mr. Speaker. But the people of Carleton will know, Mr. Speaker, that there's only one reason and one reason alone why these key pieces of legislation have not yet been passed, Mr. Speaker. And it's the opposition partisan game, Mr. Speaker. Even ahead of Christmas, Mr. Speaker, they're stopping legislation for first-time home buyers, Mr. Speaker. They're stopping the creation of tens of thousands of jobs, Mr. Speaker. They're stopping the National School Food Program, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we're going to build Canada.
The Honourable Member for Calgary East.
He wants to believe he disagrees with everything that he wrote about pipelines over the last 10 years. He supported Liberals cancelling a West Coast pipeline in 2016 in his 2021 committee testimony. The Liberals' tanker ban off the West Coast makes a pipeline impossible. Will Liberals admit they were wrong on pipelines, wrong on the tanker ban, and vote for our motion to approve a pipe to the Pacific, remove the tanker ban, just like the Prime Minister promised Alberta in the MOU?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, it's really sad that the Conservatives are divided, because the Premier of Alberta supports the entire MOU. The Premier of Saskatchewan supports the entire MOU. The Premier of Ontario supports the entire MOU. The cynical ploy to pick and choose. Canadians can see through that, Mr. Speaker. Why don't they come on board with all of us and all the provinces and vote for building Canada?
Honourable Member for Calgary East.
They're talking out of both sides of their mouth. The Prime Minister tells his Keep It in the Ground caucus no pipeline. He tells Alberta there will be one. He says he supports a tanker ban, but then promises to override it. He's going to flip-flop on the pipeline until after the election, pretending he wants to build one without ever offending his loony left Liberals. Will he stand up to keep it in the Ground caucus? Get it?
The honourable member wasn't targeting a specific MP on this side, but it still wasn't maybe the nicest language. You may continue.
The Prime Minister talks out of both sides of his mouth. He tells the Keep It in the Ground caucus no pipeline while promising Albertans there will be. He says he supports a tanker ban, then promises to override it. He's going to flip-flop on the pipeline until after the election, pretending he wants to build.
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I would invite the member opposite to read the entire MOU. And then maybe he could join the Premier of his province and support the MOU like all of us and all of the other premiers. Why doesn't he get on board and build Canada strong?
The Honourable Member for Leduc-Wetaskiwin.
A decade ago, this Liberal government killed the Northern Gateway pipeline, which would have shipped 525,000 barrels of Canadian oil per day to Asian markets. The value of that oil would have been billions coming annually into the Canadian economy. Instead of that economic supercharge, Liberals enacted crushing policies with no environmental benefit while doubling Canada's debt. That Liberal political decision greatly benefited the economies of other oil-producing countries like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Venezuela, and Russia. But what did Canadians get from that sacrifice other than a mountain of new Liberal debt?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister has answered that question a number of times already today. What is clear to me is that the Conservative Party doesn't see the need to be investing in our economy. Mr. Speaker, we put forward a plan in the form of a budget, and that budget sees over $50 billion going straight into the community of each and every member of Parliament in this room, Mr. Speaker. It is going to create community centres, recreational centres. It's going to create local infrastructure that is going to benefit Canadian families from coast to coast to coast, and the Conservatives seem to be against everything that is good for Canadians.
The honourable member for Leduc-Wetaskiwin.
Back to the actual topic. The Liberal MP from Victoria defiantly stated that he is, quote, decisively not in support. The Liberal Member of Parliament for Vancouver-Granville has said that it must have BC's consent. The Liberal MP for Fleetwood Port Kells went further, saying that any pipeline, quote, must have the consent of the Premier of British Columbia. Without support from that one Canadian, he said emphatically, quote, there will be no pipeline. Will the Prime Minister stand up to his Keep It in the Ground caucus, or is his real plan to simply delay any pipeline until after the next election when he can kill it?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
I don't know if that member's saying that we should be building a pipeline without having partnerships with First Nations over the objections of the democratic and duly elected province and government of British Columbia. I don't know that that's what that member's saying. It seems to be what he's saying. If he could perhaps clarify for this House and for the people of Alberta and British Columbia, that would be very helpful. For our part, we're going to work with British Columbia, we're going to work with First Nations, and we're going to execute this MOU, every part of it, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Caribou Prince George.
Prime Minister promised Canadians he would build now and move at unimaginable speeds.
He did.
But eight months later, all we have is a questionable MOU that punts pipeline proposal down the road. It doesn't create jobs. It doesn't boost the economy. All it does is give Premier Eby another excuse to keep saying over my dead body. The Constitution is clear. BC has no veto. So why are the Liberals stalling? Will the Liberals admit they were wrong and vote for our motion to approve a pipeline like the Prime Minister said he would?
Good question.
Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this time it's from a Member of Parliament from British Columbia. The Member of Parliament from British Columbia wishes to now let it be known that he would stomp all over the duly elected government of the province of British Columbia, stomp all over Indigenous and First Nations involvement in any such advances. The member wants it to be made very clear that there is only one part of that entire MOU that appeals to him. For our part, we like it all, we're working on it all, and we're going to work with others to get it done.
The Honourable Member for Caribou Prince George.
We are hemorrhaging jobs at a staggering rate in BC. Over the last 2 weeks, thousands of British Columbians have lost their jobs because of this Prime Minister. The pipeline will create jobs and make our economy self-reliant. We need this. Our nation needs this.
Hear, hear.
But the Liberals can't get their story straight. One MP says no pipeline without BC's consent, and the member from Victoria says he's decisively not in support. They say one thing to one group and another to another group. How can Canadians take this government seriously when they can't get their story straight and can't get their caucus in line?
That's right.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Let's talk a little bit about British Columbia, the single province with the most projects of national significance, the most capital investment announced, the largest capital investment in the history of this country announced by my colleague, the Minister of Natural Resources. But if that's not enough, Mr. Speaker, how about 3 straight months of job growth? How about inflation down? How about wages up over the rate of inflation? How about celebrating the economic progress and the successes of this country instead of sitting over there and talking Canada down?
The Honourable Member for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna.
Told Canadians he would be judged by the prices at the grocery store. And in British Columbia, food bank use is entrenched, with about 1/4 of families food insecure. A family of 4 will pay about $1,000 more for food next year. We know this out-of-touch Prime Minister doesn't do his own shopping, but Canadians still have to pay at the till. Will he admit to BC families that he doesn't know a thing about grocery prices and that under these Liberals, higher bills are the new normal, or will he adopt Conservative ideas to make life more affordable, like cutting inflationary spending and ending the industrial carbon tax?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Mr.
Mr. Speaker, again, it's hard to take that member and that party seriously on the questions when in the platform of April 2025, that member has a lot of farmers in his riding, Mr. Speaker. They're the ones who contribute in this country. Not a single platform commitment from the Conservative Party for farmers in this country, Mr. Speaker. It's hard to take that member opposite when he votes against the National Food School Program, Mr. Speaker. 400,000 Canadians benefit young children in this country. He votes against it. How about tax cuts, Mr. Speaker? That used to be the party that stood for that. They're standing in the way in this House of passing this budget 2025, which is good for Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
Also, member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
This Prime Minister told Canadians he should be judged by prices at the grocery store. Well, I heard from Amy in Cloverdale. She lives in a household of 2, doesn't have children of her own, and still can't keep up with groceries. When she heard more increases are coming, she wondered if the ultimate goal is to force people to crawl on their hands and knees begging and pleading for relief. For Amy, meat's a luxury, and she's terrified for the future of her 5 nephews. Amy asked me, when will it stop? So when will the Prime Minister finally stop driving up food costs so Canadians can afford to feed themselves?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I know the people in British Columbia are concerned about prices, and we are too. We're taking care of them. They want a government that's going to stand with them. That's why we're investing in the National School Food Program to support 400,000 families. That's why we're investing in supports for seniors, and it's why we're investing in supports for families to take care of their children. Mr. Speaker, we're going to stand with British Columbians. We're going to stand with all Canadians and take care of them.
The Honourable Member for Kamloops, Shuswap, Central Rockies.
This Prime Minister told Canadians he should be judged by prices at the grocery store. Well, food bank visits have increased up to 80% in BC. The Kamloops Food Bank had almost 74,000 business visits last year, and the number keeps growing. Now donations are dropping, and food banks are reducing service areas to remain sustainable, cutting off rural areas from support. When will the Liberals cut their inflationary spending, their industrial carbon tax, and their new fuel tax so Canadians can afford to eat?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that Conservative member talks about food prices, and yet he voted against making the National School Food Program permanent, Mr. Speaker. That is a program that helps young people, that helps school-aged children eat food in order to learn better, Mr. Speaker. This morning I made an announcement at a women's shelter in Montreal that our government has funded in order to help women find a secure and safe place to call home, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives are against supporting our frontline workers, whether it's in the food industry, whether it's our shelters, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Strengthening economic security also means protecting the dignity and financial peace of mind of seniors, including fraud against seniors, which is a major political issue. Did you know who said that, Mr. Speaker? The member for Shefford. And we agree, and that is the reason for which it is so disappointing to see the Bloc Québécois delaying Bill C-15. Could the Minister of Finance remind those who are intentionally delaying this bill how their partisan manoeuvring has a real impact on our seniors? The Honourable Minister for Finance. Mr. Speaker, financial fraud is a serious problem that disproportionately affects seniors, newcomers and other vulnerable populations. That is the reason for which in Budget 2025 and Bill C-15 we are taking decisive action to strengthen enforcement and ensure that Canadians can have confidence in the security and resilience of their financial systems. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois is against this. What a shock. It's difficult to understand why the Bloc would be against helping our seniors. What's easy to understand is that the 44 members of the Quebec Liberal caucus will defend seniors.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister told Canadians to judge him by the prices at the grocery store. 8 months have passed, and now Canada's food price report says that Canadian families should expect to pay an extra $1,000 for groceries in 2026. In total, grocery bills have doubled under the Liberals to $340 per week. When will these Liberals cut their inflationary spending, the industrial carbon tax, and their new fuel tax so Canadians can afford to eat?
That's right.
The Honourable Minister of Emergency Preparedness and Community Resilience.
Mr. Speaker, we've cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. We're building affordable homes. We're making it easier for young people to buy homes, creating thousands of jobs by investing in our economy. The easiest way for Conservatives to make life more affordable to Canadians is to support our plan and Budget 25. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent, Akia-Wenrack. Mr. Speaker, this government's economic policies don't work. Grocery bills have doubled over the last 10 years under the Liberal government and will cost $1,000 more next year. Food banks can't handle it. In Saint-André-le-Châtel, there will be 200 Christmas baskets handed out, 70 more than last year. In the Caisse Saint-Ambroise, 325 Christmas baskets are being prepared. There is one food bank that has already reached their quota. Some people who need this basket won't get one. Will the Liberals finally understand that their policy and politics simply do not work? The Honourable Member. What makes us different than the Conservatives is that on this side we believe that we need a strong economy to protect the most vulnerable. A strong economy. 54,000 jobs created in November, 60,000 in September. Unemployment is going down. Inflation is going back into Bank of Canada forecasts. But they never voted for. Not only that, they keep voting against the dental care system, the National Food Programme, the child benefit system. So, Mrs. Speaker, the Conservative hypocrisy is simply alarming. The Honourable Member for Bonneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Speaking of hypocrisy, they've implemented programs for the last 10 years, but nothing's working. In my riding, I went around 17 food banks that are preparing Christmas hampers for people, and they have all said that the number of requests have gone up. The Prime Minister needs to come down from his ivory tower, needs to go down in the field and stop. He needs to stop with inflationary taxes. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have said it again and again. The Conservatives keep talking about imaginary taxes. Inflation is going down here in Canada, and we are here to meet the needs of Canadians. The Conservatives, however, voted against all the measures in the budget that will help people make ends meet, including our school food program that will help our children. Can you imagine that, Mr. Speaker?
For Guelph.
Mr. Speaker, Budget 2025 contains many comprehensive measures to help make life more affordable for Canadians while helping grow the economy. Open banking promotes competition and affordability by letting Canadian consumers and businesses take advantage of cutting-edge technologies and share their financial data with approved and regulated service providers. Can the Secretary of State for Financial Institutions please outline why open banking is so important to the Canadian economy and how stalling progress on this file is harming Canadian consumers and businesses?
Good question.
Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, open banking will give Canadians more control over their own financial data, allowing them to securely choose the services that work best for their needs. It will increase competition, lower costs, and help families get better budgeting tools, faster access to credit, and tailored financial products. These are common sense measures that the opposition is obstructing by delaying our budget bill, Mr. Speaker. I urge that Conservative leader to let his heart grow over Christmas. Put the partisan games aside and join us in building a strong and resilient Canadian economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Montmorency-Charlevoix. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the Conflict of Interest Act, it is clearly noted that ministerial staff, for example, are not allowed to get any gifts or other benefits. The Journal de Montréal stated this morning that 10 people connected to the Liberal Party of Canada received $1,000 each for services rendered during the last leadership race for the current leader of the Liberal Party of Quebec. Can the Prime Minister finally explain to Quebecers what's all this Liberal flim-flamming about?
La loi sur les conflits d'intérêts? The
Conflict of Interest Act does not apply to the province. This is a federal statute.
Est-ce que quelqu'un veut prendre la question?
Does anyone want to answer that one? The Leader of the Government in the House. Mr. Speaker, like the member and Canadians know full well, provincial and federal parties are independent from one another. Canadians can...
All right, gang, so we're just going to wrap it up. Aaron, Canadian Looney, like, share, subscribe. It's freezing here. I'm so cold. I've got, to put on extra layers because the house is getting that cold. The furnace can't cut in more times than it has been. Anyhow, Canadian federal politics, what are you going to do? That's it. We're wrapping up right now. We're going to go out. On the way we go out, if we can get it, yeah, it'll be later, gang.
You should do exercises. That's important to our good health. And friends, tomorrow we are going to be visiting with a fisherman who will tell us about his very enjoyable hobby. Now, I would like to see you all through our magic mirror. Romper, bumper, stomper, boo, tell me, do. Magic mirror, please tell me today, did all of my friends have fun at play? I see all of my friends in Alberta. It's nice to see you. And I see Dan and Vivian. I see Marlon and Mona. I see Catherine and Harley. I see Anne and Elizabeth and Jane. I see Bert and Nicole. And I see you too. I hope to see you tomorrow, right here in Romper Room. Bing bong, knock knock, hey daddy do. Bing bong, tick tock, bebop boom.
Kick off your weekend with exciting CFL action when the Edmonton Eskimos tackle the BC Lions in Vancouver. Tomorrow night at 10:30 on CFTO TV.